friends, welcome to the Point. In today's session, let's discuss about money and credit. Money as a medium of exchange. So we know that money is important in our day-to-day life. So with the help of money, we can purchase so many goods. And there are so many transactions taking place in our day-to-day life. And some of these services, they are being exchanged with money. For example, you want to purchase a chocolate or a book. You go to the shop, you pay the money and get the things you wish for. In the older days, this medium of exchange, it was through exchanging things. For example, person A, he is selling some shoes, and person B, let's say he is selling some pots. The person one who sells a shoe, he goes to person B and asks for exchange of goods. So that for his pair of shoes, he gives a pot. So this is how the system was in olden days. So here both the person A and B, they agreed to exchange their commodities. So this is known as double coincidence of wants, and this is known as barter system. So in a barter system where goods are directly exchanged without the use of money, double coincidence of wants is an essential feature. So in contrast to it, in an economy where money is in use, so money, by providing the crucial intermediate step, it eliminates the need for double coincidence of wants. It is no longer necessary for person A or person B who will buy his products and sell some other products to him that he needs. So once this person A has exchanged his shoe for money, he can purchase whatever he wishes for in the market. Since money acts as an intermediate in the exchange process, money is called an medium of exchange. Modern forms of money. We have seen that money is something that acts as a medium of exchange in transaction. So before the introduction of coins, a variety of objects was used as money. For example, in the ancient days, in the early ages, Indians used grains and cattle as money, and thereafter there came the use of metallic coins, gold, silver, copper coins and so on. And this phase, it was developed during the last century and a currency came into existence. And this currency, it is a modern form of money which is made out of paper notes and coins. So this is accepted as a medium of exchange because the currency is authorized by the government of the country. So in India, Reserve Bank of India issues currency notes on behalf of central government. So as per Indian law, no other individual or organization is allowed to issue currency, and the law legalizes the use of rupee as a medium of payment that cannot be refused in settling transactions in India. And also remember that no individual in India, he can legally refuse a payment made in rupees. Hence the rupee is widely accepted as a medium of exchange in our country. Deposits with the bank. The other form in which the people hold money is deposits with banks. At a certain point of time, people need only some currency for their day-to-day needs. For example, a worker who receives his salary every month regularly, he will have some extra cash at the beginning of the month. So he deposits it in a bank, and at the end of the month, he may need that extra money to run out the remaining days. So he goes to the bank, withdraws the money, and then he utilizes. So he can withdraw this money in the form of check or also with a debit card. So the advantages of saving in the bank is the person gets some interest for his amount in the bank. So the payment made through checks, the payer who has an account with the bank, he makes out a check for a specific amount, and a check is a paper that instructs the bank to pay a specific amount from the person's account to the person in whose name the check has been issued. Instead of someone's name, if it is written as self, then it means that the person who deposited, the owner of the account, is directly taking his money through check. Loan activities of bank. So there is a very interesting mechanism that works in the bank in the form of loan. Banks keep only a small proportion of their deposit as cash with themselves. For example, banks in India, they hold about 15% of their deposits as cash. So this is kept as provision to pay the depositors who might come to withdraw money from the bank on a given day. Some people come to deposit the money and some come to withdraw the cash. And this is how the bank is able to manage with this cash. So bank uses the major portion of the deposit to extend loans. And there is a huge demand for loans for various economic activities. So let's say this is a bank and the depositors come to deposit their money. So these people, here few people come to deposit and few people come to withdraw their amount. So people make withdrawals and they get interest for their deposited amount. And bank gives loans. And the person who claims the loans, they are called as borrowers. So people take the loans and in return they repay a loan with interest. So banks charge a higher interest rate on loans than what they offer on deposits. The difference between what is charged from the borrowers and what is paid to the depositors is their main source of two different credit situations. So a large number of transactions in our day-to-day activities, it involves credit in some form or the other. So credit or loan, it refers to an agreement in which the lender supplies the borrowers with money, goods or services in return for the promise of future payment. So let's study this with two cases so that we can understand it better. So in the first case, let's say it is a festival season. So it's a festival season 2 months from now, and there is a shoe manufacturer and he has received an order from a large trader in a town for 3,000 pairs of shoes, and it should be delivered within a given time before the festival. So to complete the production on time, he needs to hire few more workers and he has to purchase the raw materials, he has to meet the expenses. So he has two choices. He can ask the raw material providers that he will repay the money later. And the second choice he can obtain a loan in cash from a large traders as advance payment for 1,000 pairs of shoes with a promise to deliver the whole order by the end of the month. At the end of the month, the shoe manufacturer is able to deliver the order and make a good profit, and he would repay all his debts, that is all the money that he had borrowed. So in this case, the person obtains a credit to meet the working capital needs of production, and that credit, it helps him to meet the ongoing expenses of production, complete production on time, and this increases his earnings. Therefore, credit plays a vital and a positive role in this situation. So let's see, credit in this case, it pushes the borrower into a situation from which recovery is painful. Let us consider a situation for this statement. So let's say there is a small farmer and he grows a groundnut with his 3 acres of land, and he takes a loan from money lender to meet all his expenses of cultivation, hoping that the harvest would help to repay the loan. And in the mid of the season, the crop is hit by the pest, or else we can say that due to heavy rain, the crop has been spoiled. And this farmer is unable to repay the money for his money lender, and this debt, it grows over the years into a very larger amount. So next year, even though the crop has good yield and he had made profit out of it, the old loan which he had took, as the interest is increasing since from the last year, the debt rate is very more, that his profit is not enough to settle whole of the debt amount. So in this case, the credit pushes the borrower into a situation from which recovery is very painful. That is, the farmer is unable to come out of the loan. Terms of credit. Every loan agreement, it specifies an interest rate which the borrower must pay to the lender along with the repayment of the principal. So in addition, the lenders may demand a collateral security against loans. So this collateral, it is an asset that the borrower owns, like land, building, vehicle, livestock, deposit in the banks, and so on, and uses this as a guarantee to a lender until the loan is repaid. So if the borrower fails to repay the loan, the lender, he has a right to sell the asset or collateral to obtain a payment. Property such as land titles, deposit with the banks, livestock are common examples of collaterals used for borrowing. Interest rate, collateral, and documentation required. And the mode of repayment, together it comprises what we call it as terms of credit. The terms of credit, it varies substantially from one credit arrangement to another. They may vary depending on the nature of the lender and the borrower. Formal sector credit in India. The various types of loans, it can be conveniently grouped as formal sector loans and informal sector loans. Among the former or loans from the banks and cooperatives, the informal lenders include money lenders, traders, employers, relatives, friends, and so on. So in this graph, you can see the various sources of credit to rural households in India. The Reserve Bank of India, it supervises the functioning of formal source of. For example, we have seen that banks maintain a minimum cash balance out of deposits they receive, and the RBI, it monitors the banks in actually maintaining cash balance. Similarly, the RBI sees that the banks give loans not just to profit making businesses and traders, but loans to small cultivators, small scale industries, and small borrowers. And the banks had to submit information to the RBI on how much they are lending, to whom they are lending, and at what rate of interest the bank has given a loan to them. And remember, there is no organization which supervises the credit activities of lenders in the informal sector. They can lend at whatever interest rate they choose. There is no one to stop them from using unfair means to get their money back. Formal and informal credit. So this graph, it shows the importance of formal and informal sources of credit of the people in urban areas. The people are divided into 4 groups from poor to rich. So you can see that 85% of the loans are taken by poor households in the urban areas, and they are from informal sources. So when we compare this with the rich urban households, only 10% of their loans are from informal sources, while 90% are from formal sources. This pattern it is also found in rural areas. The rich households are availing cheap credit with formal lenders, whereas the poor households they have to pay a large amount for borrowing. This graph suggests that first the formal sector still meets only about half of the total credit needs of rural people, and the remaining credit needs are met from informal sources. So most loans from the informal lenders they carry a very high rate of interest and a little to increase the income of the borrowers, and therefore it is necessary that banks and cooperatives they increase their lending particularly in rural areas to the poor people so that the dependence on informal sources of credit reduces. And secondly, while formal sector loans need to expand, it is also necessary that everyone receives these loans. And at present, it is richer households who receive formal credit, whereas the poor has to depend on the informal sources. And it is important that the formal credit is distributed more equally so that the poor can benefit from the cheaper loans. Self-help groups for the poor. So we know that the poor households they are still dependent on informal sources for credits or loans. It is because banks are not present everywhere in rural India, and even when they are present, getting a loan from a bank it is much more difficult than taking a loan from informal sources. Absence of collateral it is one of the major reasons which prevents the poor from getting bank loans. And informal lenders such as money lenders they know the borrowers personally and hence they will to give a loan without collateral. The borrowers can if necessary approach the money lenders even without repaying their earlier loans. The money lenders charge very high rates of interest. They keep no records of the transaction and harass the poor borrowers. In the recent years, people have tried to come out of this and some newer ways of providing loans to the poor. The idea is to organize rural poor, in particularly women, into small self-help groups, SHGs in short. Self-help groups and pool collect their savings. A typical self-help group has up to 15 to 20 members, usually those who belong to one's neighborhood and who meet and save regularly a sum of rupees 25 to 100 rupees depending on the ability of the people to save. So they collect the money and on time those who need a loan they take the loan and they repay it with a very lower interest. Loan is sanctioned in the name of the group and it is meant to create self-employment opportunities for the members. The self-help groups help borrowers overcome the problem of lack of collateral. They can get timely loans for a variety of purposes at a reasonable interest rate, and moreover, self-help groups are the building blocks of organization of rural people, and it helps women to become financially self-reliant. The regular meetings of the group it provides a platform to discuss and act on the variety of social issues such as health, nutrition, domestic violence, and so on. So in the next session, let's discuss about globalization and the Indian economy. Thank you.